The Spanish Grand Prix is over, and it was victory for Oscar Piastri and Mclaren, as the new technical directive doesn't really look like it has done anything to slow down the papaya team. But now F1 is moving from Spain back to North America, and it is the Canadian Grand Prix, which means that it is time for my preview and predictions. This is a series where I'll be previewing, and then at the end of the video giving out my early predictions for the Grand Prix. If you enjoyed the video, then please hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now though, let's get into the video. As usual, I'll be talking about the top teams later on, so please do stick around for that. Yep, F1 is heading back to North America, and it is the return of a classic track as F1 heads to Montreal. This is a circuit where mistakes can and typically are punished, and the walls are very close and the curbs can be brutal here. Not only that, but typically the weather in Montreal can be pretty unpredictable, and we have seen a lot of weather affected races. Last year, for example, we saw heavy rain before the race, and we ended up in a scenario where Haas started on the full wet tyres and were faster than anyone else. The circuit Gilles Villeneuve features the legendary Wall of Champions chicane. This is the final chicane on the circuit, and we have seen plenty of legendary drivers in the wall there. Every chicane on this circuit has pretty much seen incidents over the years, and it will just be a matter of time before we see someone brush one of the walls on this unforgiving circuit. Because of the number of chicanes, this circuit is very stop-start, making it more of a real limited circuit. With this in mind, I don't think Red Bull will be quite as strong at this track as Verstappen was in Barcelona. I can, however, see a good performance potentially from Ferrari, who do look to be slowly getting back on top of their car. The circuit will also see the teams likely run with lower to medium levels of downforce. This is because the circuit does feature quite a lot of time on throttle, so straight line performance is important here. Not only that, but the circuit does not really have any high speed corners, which would require higher levels of downforce. The Montreal circuit is technically a street circuit, and the levels of grip is typically very low. Because of this, Pirelli will be bringing completely different tyres compared to what we saw in Barcelona, as they will be bringing the softest tyres in the range, meaning that the C4 is the hard tyre, the C5 is the medium tyre, and the soft tyre will be the C6 tyre. The last dry Canadian Grand Prix was in 2023, and in that race where the C5 was the softest tyre, it was a two-stop race, using a mixture of medium and hard tyres. With Pirelli going a step softer for 2025, provided the race is dry, then I do expect that we will see a multi-stop race, with the teams being forced back into doing two stops. I also think the C6 might struggle just a little bit in qualifying, and the rear tyres will take a bit of a beating. That is, of course, if the race itself is actually dry. As of me writing this, there is a chance that we could once again see a rain-affected race in Montreal. Overtaking at Montreal is typically one of the easiest circuits on the calendar for overtakes, and last year there was a total of 48 on-track overtakes. To help with overtaking, the Montreal circuit does feature 3 DRS zones, with only 2 detection points. The first DRS zone is on the exit of turn 7 on the run to turn 8. The second DRS zone is on the exit of the hairpin on the run to the Wall of Champions chicane, and the final DRS zone is on the exit of the Wall of Champions chicane on the run down the pit straight heading into turn 1. Last year, the pole position lap time was set by George Russell in the Mercedes, and George set a time of a 1 minute 12 flat. During that lap, Russell reached a top speed of 328 km per hour, which is approximately 203 miles per hour. In the Grand Prix itself, the fastest lap was set by Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes, and Lewis set a time of a 1:14.856. With steps off the tyres this year, I expect that both lap times should be fairly easily beaten, but we shall see. I just want to say, if you are enjoying the video so far, then I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now though, let's get back to the video and let's talk about Red Bull. For Red Bull then, they were heading into the Spanish Grand Prix with high hopes of beating McLaren. It was a circuit that should have suited their car nicely, and with the wing changes, they were hoping McLaren would be affected. Unfortunately for Red Bull and Max Verstappen, it doesn't really look like McLaren were affected in any way, and instead, they were able to hold off Verstappen pretty easily, it has to be said. And now, after Verstappen saw red and collided with George Russell, Red Bull find themselves dropping to 4th in the Constructors' Championship, and Verstappen has pretty much put himself another race behind Oscar Piastri in the points. Heading into Montreal as well, I can see this being a more difficult race for Red Bull. Yes, Verstappen won the Grand Prix last year, but that was more down to some brilliance from Max Verstappen in changeable conditions. Verstappen and Red Bull will be relying on some weather to intervene once again, because I don't think in dry conditions, this is a kind of circuit where they will be very strong. There is a lot of stop-start, and a lot of corners that ask a lot from the rear tyres, which is not a strong point for the team. Teammate Yuki Tsunoda will be hoping that he can hopefully score some points in the second car. For Mercedes then, the Spanish Grand Prix was not really a great race. We saw them drop from 2nd to 3rd in the Constructors' Championship, and we saw more reliability issues as Kimi Antonelli broke down once again. In general, it looked like Mercedes were the 4th fastest car, behind Ferrari and Red Bull, and well, of course, McLaren. Heading into Montreal, I can see them being in a good fight with Red Bull and Verstappen. George Russell has been in great form so far this season, and in Spain, he came together with Verstappen. I expect a close fight between George and Max in Canada, and it will be interesting to see if they can somehow come to blows once again. For Ferrari then, it was a pretty strong performance as Charles Leclerc scores another podium. Admittedly, it was with a bit of help from the well-timed safety car, but for Ferrari and Charles Leclerc, this was another strong performance. He sacrificed qualifying and started behind Russell and Hamilton, but he very quickly dispatched of Russell and then caught Lewis Hamilton, and after the team waved him by, he completely dropped Lewis. Teammate Lewis Hamilton was struggling for pace compared to Leclerc, but we've seen that plenty of times this season. The safety car was arguably not as well timed for Hamilton as it was for Leclerc. He boxed for soft tyres, but unlike Nico Hülkenberg in the Sauber, he didn't have any fully fresh soft tyres, and because of that, he struggled a little bit more at the restart and was overtaken by the Sauber. Heading into Montreal, I expect a stronger performance from Lewis. This has historically been a circuit where Hamilton has been very strong, but will it be enough to beat teammate Charles Leclerc? Honestly, I don't think it will be. For Ferrari, if they have a good balance, then there is a chance that we could see them on the podium yet again. But if there are rear balance issues, then it could potentially be a long race for the Scuderia. Finally then, for McLaren, it looks as though the technical directive has not really slowed them down in any way whatsoever, and they beat the competition pretty easily. Barcelona should have been a strong race from Verstappen and Red Bull, but McLaren had him pretty much beaten, and Montreal, provided it is dry, should be pretty dominant from the Papaya car. The circuit features a lot of traction zones, and it is pretty rear limited, making it the perfect circuit for McLaren. With this in mind, if the race is dry, I think it should be a very straightforward race for both drivers. Oscar Piastri has extended his lead in the Drivers' Championship as well, and now both McLaren drivers have a pretty healthy lead over Max Verstappen. The only question is, will it be victory for Piastri, or will Lando Norris get back to winning ways and win his 3rd Grand Prix of the season? So with that in mind then, what are my early predictions for the Canadian Grand Prix? Well, I think that the top midfield team and midfield driver will be Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. That is if Aston Martin don't somehow screw things up for him. But now, what about the top 5 and pole position? Well, for pole position, I'm actually going to go for Lando Norris in the McLaren, to take pole position. But what about the top 5 in the Grand Prix? Well, in P5, I am going to go for George Russell in the Mercedes. P4 will be Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. P3 will be Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, provided the car is balanced. P2 will be Lando Norris, and I'm still going to go for Oscar Piastri to win the Canadian Grand Prix. But those are my thoughts. The question is, what do you guys think will happen? In the comment section down below, please do let me know. And as always, comment, leave a like and subscribe for more F1 content. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you all for getting me to 10,000 subscribers. That really does mean a great deal to me. Thank you all so much for watching.